Webinars are one of the best funnels to run to date. In this video, I'm going to break down what webinars are, the mechanics of a webinar, and how to actually go about scaling webinars. So all a webinar is a live event that goes for about 60 to 120 minutes, sometimes longer if you're an absolute savage, designed to take somebody from being completely unaware to the point where they go, please, I'm begging you, take my money. That's the goal of a webinar. Very, very simple funnel, rips, especially on cold traffic, because again, you're taking somebody that has no idea who you are and you're forcing them to consume at least an hour to 2 hours of content that is specifically designed to sell. Very simple. That's all a webinar is. Now, in terms of the mechanics of a webinar, they function as follows. Typically what will happen is you'll run an ad or you'll have a piece of content that'll go to a registration page. All this is going to be a headline, a little opt-in form, and that's it. You can add testimonials, you can add videos if you want, but in theory, a lot of the webinars we run are literally just opt-in form or headline form. Very simple. As soon as they hit that, they're going to go to a confirmation page. This is going to have a video, a little headline, some other videos below, Q&A videos, etc. that pre-frames the call to come. Here's what to expect. Here's what you need to know. Here's how to come prepared. This is why people show up. These are results of people that have shown up so that they go, ooh, I need to show. Now, once they've opted in, this is really all they see. There are other components you can add like VIP upsells, low ticket purchases, etc. I'm not going to get into the super technical stuff on this video, but just know there are things like that. But once they go from ad to registration page to confirmation page, then what they're going to do is they're going to get hit with a series of emails that provide actual value and drive urgency. These are super important and so many people overlook them. Is the emails you send to somebody who registered for a webinar prior to the webinar are designed to provide them more context about who they are and build a gap towards getting them to show up. So many people do not do this and they just send basic reminder emails. And so when they show up, they have no idea what they're showing up for. Whereas if I can get somebody to feel the feeling in their gut of like, oh my God, he's speaking directly to me before the event even happens, think about how much higher my show rates are going to be. Then what happens from those emails is they get routed to, we'll just pretend this is like a Zoom room. They'll get routed to a live presentation where you're giving a talk, taking them from A to Z. And then what you do is you have a little CTA, call to action, that's either a book a call or a direct to checkout that then ascends to book a call. We always want to sell high ticket. But that in practice is all a webinar funnel is. There's not a ton mechanically that goes on there. Now, this is the basics. How do I take it to the next level? What are the mechanics that really can make a webinar perform well? Number one, after they opt in, one of the great things to do outside of just emails is SMS and setters. Reason being, what you want to do as an organization is you want to present the best that you can prior to this live event. And so if you opt into a webinar before, I guarantee you've never gotten a call from somebody prior. It's always after. They're always hitting you after. Imagine what would happen if somebody called you before the live event and said, hey, I saw you just registered. Was curious what you want to learn more about on the presentation so that we can tailor this to you and send you any relevant assets beforehand. We want to make sure you make the most out of our time together. Think about how different that is in somebody's mind. Yet most people don't do this. I don't do this that often. I'm not going to tell you I do it all the time. I'm going to be running one here soon. Probably not going to see me have any setters on this first go around. But over time, you weave a setter in, oh my God. Significant in the impact it makes. Significant. The other great thing about setters that people don't talk about enough is this is market research. So if I use setters properly, I'm able to gather data as a marketer prior to the event happening, meaning I can tweak my ads in real time rather than waiting until the webinar shows up, waiting until people book calls to figure out what's going on. So that's a great one is SDRs and SMS. Same thing, I won't go into the sales process a ton here, but doing the same thing on the sales side is another great way to drive show rates and really get people to close. So that's a big one. It's the market research through SDRs and sending SMS before the call. The other thing I don't see people talking about enough is actually on the form on the registration page itself. And we do something that we call brokey bait. I'm pretty sure Jeremy Haynes coined this, so I'm not going to say I came up with this, but all that this is on your opt-in, you have a little drop down where you can financially qualify people. How much do you have ready to get started in XYZ business model? They say X amount, cool. If it's qualified, you send that data back to Facebook. If it's not, Facebook never sees it, they can still register. So that now what happens is Facebook optimizes around the options that actually are qualified. Now, again, you still want to have your setters doing that work up front because they'll be able to see are people telling the truth or not. But it's a great way to filter prospects on the front end and control the data that Facebook sees. There's a ton of technical stuff, and if you do want to hear more of the technical side, there's going to be a couple links down below walking you through the different options that we have, whether it's working with us on the agency side or on the consulting and info side, where we can walk you through what goes into a really, really good webinar. But the key to this that I see so many people go wrong is they don't hammer Q&A enough. So with a webinar, at the end of a webinar, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, there's typically a Q&A section where people ask questions, blah, blah, blah. Where I don't see enough people capitalizing is on this Q&A section. This is where all of your money is made. Yeah, you got to have a good presentation. Yeah, you got to be able to pitch strong. But if you do Q&A right, oh my God, it is game over. Why? Because what a Q&A is designed to do is it gives me the opportunity to objection handle a mass group of people in real time. Somebody has a question about whatever. Susie, great question. In fact, that's just what one of our students, blah, 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 had. They were able to achieve this result. The answer to your question is this, but I don't have time to answer it all in this call because there is nuance based on your situation. So make sure you book that call with us if you haven't already and drop booked in the chat. Notice what that does. Everybody can see the answer. If you resonate with multiple people, they book. And if you get them to say booked, they engage. Q&A is a great thing to use on the webinar side. Another thing I don't see people utilizing enough is the chat. Now, your chat is not indicative of the quality of audience that you have, nor any polls you run indicative of it. A lot of your highest sophisticated audience is just gonna sit in the back and not say shit. But having a bunch of momentum in a chat, like having a chat just ripping, does a ton for booking calls. If you get people to say booked during the pitch, they will book. If you have a chat rip throughout the entirety of a presentation, your likelihood of driving bookings goes up significantly. And so having a really engaged chat is probably one of the most important things that you can have. Another component to webinars that I don't see people talk about enough are analogies. We'll do analogies and stories. These are great because analogies and stories are what really drive points home. If I were to sit here and talk to you about this literary mechanism called an analogy can be used to do this. It's built up of like versus as. Think about how difficult that is to understand it. I don't even know if I said that, but still. Think about how difficult it is to understand somebody explaining that. Whereas if I say something along the lines of, I want you to think about anytime somebody tries to explain to you something and you're just not getting it. They're talking in one ear, it's going right out the other, you're sitting at them just trying to figure out what they're saying. Now think about if they said that same thing if they added a visual component. You know how different that makes it. Now, is that the best analogy in the world? No, but what I've done is I've gotten you to go from, oh, I get it, to, oh, I see the picture. When you draw a picture, or you can paint a picture in somebody's mind, that's exactly what an analogy does. Again, I'm walking you through visually so that you get the point better. And that's why stories and analogies are so good. Another great high-level way to do this is use a testimonial as a way to explain a point. Use a testimonial as a way to objection handle. If Susie had a partner objection, use it. If Susie had a money objection, use it. If Susie had a limiting belief, use Susie to break the limiting belief. Don't just try to break it yourself. And so these analogies and these stories are great ways to drive points home. Now, in terms of the way a webinar typically works, and I'm not necessarily the best at scripting them, but we get them to work. So not claiming I'm Jason Fladlin, but I do know what I'm talking about. Typically what we like to do is open, proof, expectations. These may flip-flop just depending. Teach, transition, pitch, objection handle, Q&A. That is the typical flow that we follow for a webinar. Now, obviously this changes a bunch, but if you just follow this general outline, you will crush. The big thing here is when you are teaching, your job is to reframe current identity. I've got an identities video on this channel. I would go and watch that. Identity is the only thing that you need to play with in order to get a result from a webinar, from really any sales effort. Is if you can reframe their current identity, you will print money. It is that easy. If you can take somebody from, oh, I don't think I can do this, or oh, I don't know if this makes sense for me, to, holy shit, if I want to get to where I want to go, I got to do this thing, you will crush. You will crush, you'll crush, you'll crush every time. And so that's the basics of the webinar structure itself. Now, the last thing I'll say with a webinar specifically, because again, there's a ton that goes into this, is to keep it simple. Keep it way more simple than you think. Every president that's won in the US has spoken in a lower grade level. You got to keep it simple. What I really mean by this is on your slide, you should have no more than 2 to 3 lines, because people are going to put their focus here and they're going to put their focus on you, the presenter. If I have so much text over here, they're not going to have time to focus on what I'm saying. Therefore, I never get my point across. Therefore, conversions drop significantly. Or I give them too much and they never convert because they think they can do it on their own. Your job in a webinar is to sell the what, not the how. I think this was a Dan Henry quote, but I'm not sure. Your goal is to say what they need to do, not how they need to do it. Because if you tell them what they need to do, now you can tell them, or you can sell them how to do it. The other thing I think that people have a very hard time with, when they run a webinar, they feel like this weird sense of guilt or shame or like scumminess for not teaching. That's because you aren't teaching enough. You should still be giving value. If you feel guilt or shame or like, oh, this is a little scummy of a thing, it's because you generally aren't giving enough value. It's the way that your value is positioned that gets people to book calls. And so that's a top-down overview of a webinar. Again, there's a ton of moving pieces. If you do want to learn more, there's a link below. You can book a call. But start there. Now, when it comes to scaling a webinar, what are we looking for? All we're doing, and I'm not even going to get into the technical, I'm just going to talk about the one thing that matters most, is all we're doing is what we call bottleneck analysis. What we are looking for when we run a webinar is what is the current constraint? If we're getting qualified leads coming through, what percentage are showing up to the webinar? In our situation, we typically look for 20 to 30%. Anything higher, awesome. And again, this is for cold traffic specifically. Anything higher, amazing. But I'm not going to sit here and go, oh my God, my show rate to 20%. Like, fuck, that's a big problem. Sometimes we see 15% work. It's just how it is. Again, 20 to 30% is all we're looking for on the show rate side. On the retention of pitch, we're looking for 80%. So these are the number of people that go from attending in the beginning to being around when you transition to the actual pitch itself. Of the people that are there at retention of pitch, you're looking for a 30% book rate. And those are really the big metrics. On the opt-in rate side, I mean, ideally, you're at like 20 to 30%. opt-in on the registration page. In some cases, we see it a lot higher at like 30 to 50%, but it really depends. I mean, I run webinars at 15% opt-in rates. Not a big deal, but those are base metrics you're looking for. And what you're doing is you're looking at opt-in rate, you're looking at book rate, retention of pitch, show rate, etc. And you're seeing what the bottleneck is. Whatever the bottleneck is what you solve for. And then what you end up doing is you end up just looping over and over of like what the problem is, address it, what's the problem, address it, what's the problem, address it, so that your funnel kind of looks like this. And this explains a concept that we call the burn rate. All you're doing when you first launch is you're spending money to figure out what problems you need to solve for. So this could be click-through rate, this could be CPMs, this could be opt-in, show rate, whatever it is. And you're just solving for these problems periodically. And so you will lose money, and then all of a sudden you'll hit a point where you start making money. And then you get to this break-even point with the webinar to where, okay, now I'm at a 3x ROAS, scale. I might even scale it to 2x ROAS just to collect the data faster because I'm still profitable at the end of the day. That's the main concept here with the burn rate side, is understanding each one of those metrics that you can scale upwards. Now, the last thing I'll say where most people really mess up is they look at all their metrics and they're like, oh my God, this isn't converting. 9 times out of 10, it's a messaging problem. If you're not getting who you want, if you're not closing who you need to, it is a messaging problem. You're saying the wrong thing in your ads, you're saying the wrong thing in your emails, you're saying the wrong thing in the webinar. It's why people aren't converting. If you can get your messaging right, you will crush. There's a messaging video on this channel. I recommend you go watch. I'll link it somewhere here. Game changer if you just get the messaging right. So that is a Webinars 101 video. As I went through this, there was a lot of rabbit holes and things I could have talked about that would have just gone a little too deep in my opinion. If you want to learn more, if you want more detailed info, there are gonna be some links below you can check out, done for you side, info side, consulting side, just depends on what you're looking for to help you take your business to that next level with webinars if you want to run them, because they are ripping right now, like absolutely ripping. So I hope that helps, guys. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I will see you in the next one.